Hello and welcome to Classic Mode.
There you go. Good job, Keen did it. That's the introduction.
Oh god, okay.
I'm not joking. You're using that as the intro. So, I guess we're back with another episode, right?
Are we?
It feels... I know, it's...
We're recording it, so I suppose we are.
I suppose so. This week on Looney Tunes, I don't know why I chose Looney Tunes. We played Control, a action third-person shooter adventure game with an emphasis on like thematic world building.
Yeah,
sure.
That feels kind of about right.
I don't know why you said that with like a questioning inflection, because that was all correct.
Yeah.
I mean, it was all correct, but like usually
pretty solid description.
Yeah, I just wanted to get a feel of the room, see if everyone else agreed with me, and you did.
This is controlled by Remedy.
Remedy, yes.
When did this game come out?
2019.
2019, I think.
2019.
Yeah, and yeah, we all played it. I think we all got it because none of us had played it before, and it was free on the Epic Store. It isn't anymore, and it definitely won't be by the time anyone hears this. But it was.
Yeah.
So
the base game version, not the ultimate one with the DLC.
Yes. Wait, is DLC for the game?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
I
know what I'm doing after this.
Yep.
I like how we weren't like, oh, we played this game because it's a classic, like the title of the show. It's like, no, we played it because it was free. It was there.
Yeah.
To be fair, I know this show is called Classic Mode, but it's also designed just to play more games that we wouldn't normally.
Yes.
Exactly.
So I'm not gonna lie, there's a very high chance that if we weren't playing this, I would have just gone back and played Dyson Sphere Project again and just restarted another save on that.
In all fairness, the real reason we played this game was because we fucking tried to play another game. That didn't work out.
True.
Little behind the scenes. We attempted to play the Crash Bandicoot trilogy on Switch for the show, but it was so fucking dull that we were all like, "That's just nah." You know what? That's not.
Yeah.
It was weird that we all unanimously had the same reaction of just like, "This is just no." We don't need to talk about this one.
It's not particularly bad.
It's very neutral. Just like
Anyway, we're not talking about Crash.
There we go. That was our mini episode on Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah.
Now for the main event.
So I guess we all played on Epic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's quickly go around everyone, because I'm interested to know what control methods people used to play the game with. Because I personally played with a controller. I don't even know why. It just felt natural. So let's start with Keenan. Keenan, what input method did you use?
So my first thought when I started the game up was to grab a controller. And I specifically went against that because I basically play all third-person shooters with a controller. But this time I used keyboard and mouse, and I thought it was really, really good on there. It controlled really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you understand the restraint it's taking for me to not make a control pun every time someone says control?
Yep.
I hope you're appreciating this. Kyle.
I thought I was going to play it on a controller until I looked in the settings and saw that they give you aim assist on mouse. And I was like, well, fuck that. Playing with mouse.
Nice.
Not here for the challenge. I just want to shoot some bad guys.
Meanwhile, I played without aim assist on controller because I'm a masochist, apparently.
Oh no!
Hardcore.
I didn't do it intentionally. I didn't make the choice to do it. That's just what I did. Okay, so far 1 controller, 2 keyboard. Nico, what about you?
I played on keyboard.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Maybe I should have played on controller.
I was close to playing on controller as well.
Yeah.
What was there anything that made you not use a controller, or was it just kind of laziness, not being bothered?
Honestly, laziness.
No, what? Fair.
It was
That's why I
peak
played...
laziness where the controller was in a drawer in front of me, and I couldn't even be fucked to open that. It's like,
Nice.
I can't be fucked.
That's why I played Dark Souls 2 with a keyboard and mouse. Okay, so I played it on controller, and everyone else played it on keyboard and mouse, which is not the split I thought it would be, to be honest. I thought it would be the other way around, but hey ho. So let's go back over Yeah, let's go with what you thought going into it. Let's go from the bottom up. Let's start with Nico this time.
Oh.
I didn't know you were a bottom, Nico.
Hey. Honestly, I had no idea what to expect going into it. Like, I was just like, it's some girl with powers. She could throw things around. That's it. There was no, like, weirdness to her or anything. It was just, okay, girl has powers. I didn't even know there was shooting in the game, because literally all I saw of it was telekinesis.
Yeah, that's and levitation.
I didn't even know that much. I literally just, like, I don't know anything. I don't think I knew anything about this game. I just saw it got good reviews a couple years ago, and that was it.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience that I knew absolutely nothing about the game, like what type of game it was or anything like that. But I did know, like Kyle said, I've seen some reviews which said it was good, and some people I follow that I trust said it was amazing as well. And so I was like, okay, I'll check this out at some point.
I feel like maybe I came into it with a slightly more interesting perspective of, I assumed it would kind of be like a BioShock Infinite style game.
Okay.
Like very kind of linear story. Just here is, a story presented to you in the form of a video game, which I think is a fair description of what those kind of BioShock Infinite games tend to be. And I'm trying to think what other types of games are similar to that.
That's a good point. That is exactly the sort of thing I thought it was going to be. Yeah.
And I mean, it's safe to say that is not what this game is at all.
Wait, did everyone beat the game?
Actually, no. That is a good point before we go into the gameplay section. And we can talk about kind of what like level of completion we can beat the game to, because it's a game with like side missions and optional objectives and collectibles and that. So there's quite a lot of the game that I'm pretty sure you could experience or not experience if you just played it through going like main mission to main mission to main mission. So with that in mind, kind of what general approach did people take to kind of playing the game, and how much they feel that they completed of it?
Once I realized that doing side missions gets you upgrade points, I was like, well, I'll get me some of that. And I think I did most of the side mission stuff. I mean, I looked up the side missions, and I think I got all of it.
Wow. Okay. Nico?
I mean, I just generally do, like, side mission stuff. I'm not big on, like, getting all the collectibles, so, like, all that stuff I didn't really bother. I think
like the audio logs and whatever else.
I tried to at the beginning, and I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to listen.
There is a lot of them.
I'm not going to listen to these, so I'm just going to... Yeah.
Okay. Keenan?
I beat the game, and I wanted to do a lot more of the side missions, but I didn't leave myself enough time to do them. So I did a few of them and got a feel for them, and I'm planning on going back to them after this episode.
Okay, that's fair. I probably took a very different approach in that this is the approach I always take with games like these, the kind of semi-linear games, is that I just do stuff that I want to do. And the problem I have with it is, a lot of games like these is a lot of the times the side quests can be kind of boring. So I tend not to do them, and that was kind of the case that I'll expand on later that I found here, is I did some of the side missions because some of them are interesting, but a lot of them I didn't really do.
I think I did one side mission thinking it was the main mission because of how involved it was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think some of them are very, very good like that.
Yes, some of them absolutely are. And they're the ones I tended to do more than the other ones.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get into that more later.
Yeah. Okay. So now with that out of the way, Control is a... so you play as the main character called Jesse Faden, and you wind up in the Federal Bureau of...
Control.
Control, that's fine.
Of all the words to forget.
I want to say contraband for some reason. Yeah, you're in the headquarters of the Federal Bureau of Control, by some means.
Yeah, basically, you're this girl who, when she was young, she and her brother experienced a paranormal event, and the brother got carted off by the government, and she went on the run.
Well, put the cart before the horse.
Now, years later, you've tracked him down to this government building that turns out to have a bunch of paranormal stuff going on in it, and you're just fighting your way through a bunch of other dimension ghosts and stuff.
I feel like it's probably worth pointing out that a lot of the context that Kyle just gave is not made very apparent.
And not until later.
Not until later on. So, like, you know, kind of at the start of the game, you're like, I don't really know why I'm here, and then you start talking about, you know, you hear her talk about her brother, and that, and you're like, oh, okay, and it kind of gets slowly revealed, so it doesn't dump all that exposition on you at the front. So in terms of the like the general gameplay it is very much a ability based third person shooter, right? So you have your service weapon, which can take a few different forms, you know, like pistol, shotgun, machine gun, that kind of things, and then you have a range of mostly kinetic abilities.
Yeah.
So there's like the throw, the shield, where you like put bits of debris up in front of you to shield yourself. There's like the mind control one. So and yeah, the kind of for a large part of it, the gameplay is combining those two kind of facets together to kind of progress through the FBC's headquarters, which is full of all sorts of oddities. I feel like I want to touch on the theming first, just because of how weird it is. Like, it's very much SCP inspired, right?
Oh, heavily. That was the first thing I thought.
Yeah, I started reading audio logs. Listening to audio logs and reading the files you get. And that's the first thing I noticed is, like, you know, the whole like redactions in like case logs, and they talk about these objects of power, which are very clearly meant to be like actual SCPs themselves. And there's all sorts of weird stuff going on in regards to those and kind of extraterrestrial energies.
Yeah.
And it's just a really, personally myself, I found it a really fascinating kind of environment to look around, which is rare for me. Generally, I'm not big on the theme. I much tend to just be like, oh, this is kind of cool, and like wander on and just only really look at stuff that the game puts in front of me. But this time I was far more interested in, you know, exploring like places and finding the audio logs and the files and the notes and everything else. What was your guys' take on it?
I remember when you started the game, which was quite a while ago compared to when I started it. You messaged me with little context, and you were basically like, you should try reading some of the documents and stuff you find. So, okay, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but we'll get to it. And I'm so glad you said to do that, because I may have missed it, and I think I ended up reading every single one I found, and like listening to all the logs that I found. It was just so good. Like, I know, it was really intriguing. A lot of the like mysteries and stuff, they're very heavily SCP inspired. Like the altered items that you'd find around as well, and then you'd find like little like documents about them and like what they do.
Yeah, and they followed almost exactly like the SCP formula of like they would even have like a containment procedure at the top, and then have like a description, and then around it you would find like, oh, audio logs of expedition or whatever, and like talking about these altered items.
Joe, I really just loved how it kind of built up to it. Like, when you first start the game, or at least when I first started it, I noticed some oddities as I was going through because again, I had no idea what to expect. Like, just little things, like, you seem to go back on yourself, even though you went through a linear path. You're like, that's weird. I went back on myself one time, one of the first levels, and the area I came from was now blocked off by an office wall. I was like, oh, this is weird. Just like little things like that to like start to unsettle you. We're like, what the hell is going on here? Which, bearing in mind, tells you nothing at the very beginning. You're just going through, and then once you get into the meat of it, then it starts to bring context. You're like, okay. But I just like how it sets itself up, to be honest. Like, it builds it up into... just gets weirder and weirder with it.
You know,
Very
It
nice.
does, yeah.
it's funny. I'm usually the one that I think out of the four of us is the most likely to really get into the story of a game. I didn't read a single one of the logs.
What?
Or listen to any of it because I just don't. I don't like it. I don't like that in games. I don't.
Usually, I 100% agree. I never read them ever.
No.
But I read one of them, and I was like, I was hooked at that point.
I don't want to read.
Oh my god!
I'm not saying it's necessarily bad. It can be done right. I'm just saying I can't really speak as to how well this game does it because I didn't choose to engage in it. It's personally, okay. I just don't give a fuck. Regardless of if it's done well, I just don't want to I don't want to read. If I want to read, I'll read a book. I don't want to play the game.
Just to get this right, you didn't read a single one.
Nope.
Like none of them.
No.
Huh.
Oh man.
That must have. That would have changed your experience a lot.
The game got the point across. It was like I got pretty quickly what it was supposed to be. Like the feeling of it. So I was like, all of this other stuff is just fluff. And I'm sure it's cool, but I don't want to read.
I think that's the thing. Is it's more atmosphere at that point. It's like it engages you with the theme and the story. Like you don't get basically any real information out of the documents that you can use yourself. It's, I don't know. It just builds on the theme and really sort of makes you more interested in the world in general.
It's just weird for me, like the pacing of like I'm running through this game and shooting things, and then I pick up a thing, and it's like, right, time to stop for 5 minutes and read in total silence, and it's like, and then back to the game, and especially with how many documents you pick up, like it's just not for me.
That's not how I did it though.
I don't mean to come across as insulting, Kyle.
Uh-huh.
What's your reading comprehension like?
I don't read. I'm surprised I can read still.
Because I'm like, for me, each document took about like 30 seconds to read.
I don't care. I don't want to read at all. I don't care how long it takes.
I think the thing is, for me, I didn't pick up each document and read it. I went through the action segment, and then I took a moment after I'd like finished a mission or whatever, and I was back in the central executive room or whatever it was called, and I'd read through everything I'd collected, and it gives you a little tab of what you have read and what you haven't read. And I think that sort of broke up the gameplay very well as well. I could have seen myself getting a little bit tired of the gameplay if I hadn't done that.
I mean, to be fair, kind of, if, like I said, if it's not for you, then...
Yeah.
I don't know why we're talking about this first. We should be talking about the game.
This is like a core part of the game for me, though. This is like one of the reasons I love it so much.
I suppose, like, another part that I kind of want to piggyback off that you mentioned is that this game is not linear. There are 4 zones, really. Executive, research, containment, and maintenance. And kind of more of the zones and more of the zones unlock as you kind of go through the game. So you end up with a far more like branching story. Like, you'll be in central executive, then you have a mission to go to maintenance, and then you'll come back, then you have a mission to go over to executive or containment or something like that. So it kind of does break up that linearity of the game. While still feeling like a very controlled environment. See what I did there. Which I find I kind of really like that approach to the game.
Yeah.
Where, because like I mentioned before, things like Bioshock Infinite feel very linear. Yeah, how did kind of other people feel that that happened, that worked?
It's interesting you say that, because I was going to make a point about how it felt super linear to me.
Oh,
really?
Like more than I thought it would.
Interesting.
Well, it was weird because like you start the game, and I think a couple of us had this thought. Like it comes up with a full-on map system, and and I was like, oh, that's interesting, and it made me think for a sec that it was going to be like a Metroidvania or something. Because like, why would it give you this whole ass map, right? Unless you need to be going through these areas like quite a lot, right? So I figured it's probably going to be like involve a lot of backtracking and stuff. And then it wasn't that at all. It was just you get a mission, you go to the mission, and you do that, and then you go to the next mission, and then you do that, and then the game ends.
That's really interesting you bring that up, because I'm going to date this pretty badly. As of recording, I just edited the Luigi's Mansion episode. And I also went into that game, opened up the map, and I was like, oh, it's a Metroidvania. And then it was super linear.
You know what? I don't know if I actually brought that up during the Luigi's Mansion episode, but there's probably...
We definitely talked about it, yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely something that should be mentioned. Luigi's Mansion has that same thing. It looks like it's set up to be a Metroidvania and then isn't at all.
But I think the difference with that is that you cover every single room and you explore everything. Whereas I find with Control, I found that all the spaces were a lot more open, and there were certain places that you'd basically never go if you weren't doing the side missions, for example.
Yeah, there was some amount of branching, sure.
It just, to me, it felt like just having that open area was very grounding to the game. It was like it could have been a linear game where you just go down corridors and you do all the same shit that you do anyway. But they decided to make it this specific complex that is like just there, and you can go and explore it if you want to. And you might find enemies that are too hard for you right now, but you can go and check out everything, and it's so cool.
I did, yeah. That's the one thing I felt with this. It's like you just find yourself getting lost in it, and not in like a bad way. Well, maybe like sometimes,
Yeah,
bad ways. Yeah, maybe sometimes bad ways if you're like really, if you're really trying to get somewhere, it can get annoying. But there were times where you kind of get lost. You're like, oh, like it's fun, like exploring all these places that I otherwise wouldn't have had it not been for the map. But yeah, it was hit and miss with it. Like there were definitely bits of like, fucking, I just want to get to this bit and I'm getting fucking lost there. God fucking damn it.
This feels like a really good point to bring up. This map might be the worst video game map I have ever had the displeasure of using.
It is awful, yeah.
Like,
agreed.
It's almost unusable. Like, it's very, very close to bordering on unusable. Like, I don't know who designed it. For some context, each area is made up of layers, like an onion. Or like an ogre. I'm not judging.
Or a cake.
Or a cake. And the layers have different, like, levels of brightness to them. And I assumed it was doing some sort of dynamic sorting where it would put whichever layer you were on as the brightest layer.
That was my initial thought as well, yeah.
But that doesn't seem to be what it did.
Nope.
And there were times, I don't know if anyone else noticed this, where I would be standing in a room, down a corridor, and I'd open the map, and the map would show me in, like, just some dead space. And it's like, so I'm nowhere, apparently? It's, like, impossible to navigate anywhere using the map.
To be fair, that could happen in this game. That you just end up nowhere.
I mean, there's a point in the game where you literally, if you look at the map when you're going through this certain bit, you literally go off the screen, and then it goes to unmapped.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, like, I think about that, but the map is just not usable. Like, you can use it to be like, I know I need to go to this kind of area, but I can't figure out, like, okay, I need to go down this corridor, turn left, go through the room, up the stairs, double back on myself, use that elevator, and then, cool, I'll be there. You couldn't do that.
I didn't have that much of a problem with it, but it was bad, don't get me wrong.
It didn't impact my playing of the game that much. It was more a case of it just was frustrating.
I completely agree that the map is bad and they should have done something about it. Like, even if it was just like, you can change the floor that you're looking at, for example.
Yes.
But to play devil's advocate, when there's like a really like good map, I find myself looking at it constantly. Whereas this was bad enough that it was like, I know the general direction I want to go in, and I'm actually going to look around the room for entrances and stuff, rather than just having the map up constantly. So it gave you something good out of something bad.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely positive you could take away from
that. Was good that you could, like, the map would be, it wasn't a separate screen, it would be, like, transparent, faded over, so you could still run around with it open.
Yes.
That was nice.
And, like, I've really appreciated as well that like you could look at your map, you could see what area you're going towards and like what the mission is telling you, and then you could look around the world and see the signs pointing to where you need to go.
Yes, that was.
That's
also
what I used more so than the map. That's probably why I didn't have that much of a problem with the map. It's because I barely used it. Like, I only used it like a few times.
Yeah, no, I ended up navigating primarily through in-world signage too.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, I prefer a lot. Like, I would always pull up the map just to see the general direction I'm heading.
Yeah.
And then I would mostly use in-world navigation.
That reminds me, there was a certain mission in the game where, like, you had to go and find some of the mold people. I don't know if you guys did the mold side quest. I just realised that's a side quest.
Can confirm I did.
There's a couple of them, and I did not.
I did the first one, and then they were like, "Good morning." I was like,
There was like, there's a mission where it's like, oh, a few of them have scattered around the building, go find them. And you get like the general area of where they're in, and then you go. And what was cool was that these areas that were clean before, when you go back to them now, they've got like a bunch of mold and stuff all over the walls on certain parts to like lead you over to like, oh, that's where they are. Which was pretty cool.
Yeah, the game does do a fantastic job on definitely using the world to kind of convey a message, both gameplay and story-wise.
Yeah, agreed.
Jose, on the subject of navigation, I struggled with the objective markers quite a bit. It doesn't give you the exact location of the objective, it just gives you like the area.
Yes.
So there was a lot of times I was just running around like, where is it? I know it's here. And like there was the one mission where there's like a big gap in the floor. And I thought, oh, maybe I can dash over it somehow. Doesn't look like I can. It looks too far. And I tried to dash and I can't. And I'm like, okay, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do here. And just sat there for ages trying to figure it out, trying to look for things in the environment. And eventually I looked it up and it was like, oh, you do the next mission and then you get a power that you can use. I didn't know there was a levitating thing, so I was just like, oh, okay. So then I went and did and that one was weird in particular because the game specifically gave me the mission to go there and do that, even though I didn't have the power I needed to do it yet.
See, that's a really interesting thing, is that this game is not a Metroidvania, but that is a Metroidvania element right there.
Yeah.
I
that
think
so
like,
interesting.
Like it would have been fine if it didn't tell me to go there. If that was just something I found on my own and I couldn't progress, I would have been a lot quicker to dismiss it and be like, okay, I clearly can't do this yet. Like the ashtray maze. When I went there for the first time just because I saw a sign on the wall that said dimensional research. And I was like, hell yeah, I want to go to dimensional research. And you go in there and it's just a bunch of hallways that loop into each other. And I sat there for ages thinking like, it's a puzzle. I've got to solve it. Because there's been puzzles up to that point. So I figured I got to figure out how to get through it. And then it turns out you come back later. So
yeah.
I'm so glad you told me that it was an unsolvable puzzle, Kyle, because I streamed a little bit of me playing it when me and Kyle were on Discord one evening.
Right.
And Kyle told me, and I'm glad he did, because I would have definitely kept smashing my face into it, looking for a solution. It's funny because I didn't do that any other point in the game, which I think I find interesting because to me, things like the gap you mentioned, Kyle, looked really obvious to me. Like, well, yeah, like this looks very obvious that I can't make this jump at the moment. Like, clearly I need something else.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but clearly I need something else before I can bridge this gap. So then I turn around and explore. And I think I think having things that it gives you where you get a quest for a thing or it tells you about something and you can't do it is fine as long as it's made obvious you can't do it. Which is, to me, the difference between the gap and like the ashtray maze, right? Is there's nothing really in the ashtray maze that makes it apparent you can't do it.
When you go to the ashtray maze the first time, I'm guessing that you don't get any prompt or anything that you can't do it, right?
As far as I'm aware, no.
Because I know when I went when the story told me to go there, and it was at that point Artie was like, it's broken. You need to fix it. I guess I can't go through here then, and so I left after one loop.
Yeah, no. If you go there without any prompt at all, you don't get, furthermore, any hint that you can't.
Okay.
You can't get through it at that time.
That's weird.
To be fair, I think there was actually a cutscene with, what was his name, Trent or something? The
director, the old director.
Yes.
Trench, that was it. The old director. He like pops up in ghost form sometimes as an on-screen overlay, and like just has weird monologues, talking about weird paranormal stuff. And I think the first time I went there, he did like pop up, and be like, "Oh, it's a fucking weird maze, and no one can get through it." Yada yada yada. But even still, you still go into it thinking it's presenting you with a puzzle. Like if there weren't any other puzzles in the game, then maybe I would have been more likely to be like, okay, I clearly can't come back here. But when the game has set itself up as like, when it's established that it will throw puzzles at you sometimes, I'm going to look at everything like it's a puzzle.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if it's just a gap in the floor. I'm going to be like, there has to be something here that I'm missing.
Fair enough. Nico, did you want to talk about the motel?
Nah, fuck the motel.
No, fuck the motel.
Look, all I'll say on it is I thought you could fucking walk. Because I started walking off very carefully. There was a fucking invisible collision, and my character was fully off it. So I was like, I guess I can walk there. I just fucking fell to my death. And then that whole motel section, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Didn't make it clear at all. And yeah, it wasn't even that long, but it felt long because I was getting pissed off with it.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay, I have 2 notes on puzzles.
Okay.
The first one is sort of a puzzle. When you have to activate the HRA machine.
Yes.
And it's the first time you meet Marshall.
Yes.
You have to pick up the punch cards, look at the whiteboards, and put them in the right places, and that is the puzzle.
Yes.
Marshall does not shut the fuck up. Oh my god. I don't know if... I assume it was the same for you guys, but literally every 10 seconds, as I was running around to try and do this puzzle, she would be trying to give hints and things like that and repeating lines.
I do remember that.
I want to say it sounds like a bug because I didn't have that.
I didn't know that either.
No, I like she said it once, and then like I want to say every like 2 minutes or so, she would give the player what felt like a helpful hint, like like, oh, try checking the whiteboards or whatever.
Yeah, no, I was getting like I couldn't even run from one machine to all of them without her saying it about 3 or 4 times.
Jeez, okay, that definitely sounds like a bug to me.
I find mine was somewhere in the middle. Like it felt constant enough that it was like, okay, I get it, but it wasn't like that constant where it was like, really? Fucking
right. Well, I hope that's a bug because that will really piss me off.
Yeah, maybe, I definitely didn't have
maybe
that.
The amount she helps you changes depending on how good you are at the game.
It's possible.
I mean,
maybe I was just playing really badly.
I know I spent way too long in the maintenance room, probably like, look, I'm going to fucking help you here.
Yeah, no, aside from that, all the like secret puzzles and the little side quests and stuff are really cool. Like, did you guys figure out the luck and probability quest?
Yes.
No.
I did do that
one.
A really cool little one.
Well, because this almost fucking killed me. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll fucking leave.
Yeah,
that's the
cool.
one where you spin the roulette wheel, right?
Yes.
Yes, and then random things happen. And I now know that it's linked to fiddling with objects around the room.
Yes.
But when I did it, I just spanned the roulette wheel a bunch of times and it just blew random crap up around me.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of clues in the room itself, and there's also some clues in documents as well. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I think it was really like some of the secret puzzles could be super obscure as well, but it was in quite a cool like world building way, if that makes sense. Yeah, like I have one puzzle in particular. I can't remember what it was to do. I think it might have been to open a door or something like that. But it was one of those monsters that you've got to do that little icon, the square icon thing on the cube. And the solution to it was on a window nearby.
Yes,
but you
I
had to leave the room, and it was just on a glass window.
Mm-hmm.
And like, just it could, like, usually I would expect a puzzle like that to be either way more obvious or just basically give me the answer. But this was like, no, explore your environment, take in what you're actually in, like the environment you're in, and figure it out like that. Yeah, that's all I've got for puzzles.
Okay.
I just thought it was really interesting the way that they incorporated them into the world rather than them being like specific, like, do this puzzle.
Yeah, I mean, because a lot of it was kind of under the guise of like security measures as well, which kind of fits in with the theme of all these, you know, dangerous and weird objects even more.
Exactly. Yeah. Maybe we can get into this. Did you change any of the difficulty settings in the options?
I don't remember.
Okay. Because this game is interesting in that it doesn't have a difficulty level, from what I can tell. It has a bunch of assist modes.
I actually wanted to talk about this as well, so I'm glad this is the route we're going down. Things like infinite ammo, God mode, one-shot kills, all that stuff in the main menus you can turn on and off. There's even like damage percentages. So you can tweak, like, you know, increase or decrease amount of damage you take and increase or decrease amount of damage enemies take. I think there's even a HP slider, I think. There's, like, it's a really well put together game in terms of those kind of modifiers, which is really nice to see. I personally just left basically everything as I found it.
Yeah,
so pretty much. Yeah.
I don't think I changed anything really. I don't know. I think it was a point where I tweaked down the enemy's damage a little bit.
I almost did. I almost went and looked through it and like changed a bunch of stuff when I was doing the. I got to the anchor side mission. Yes. That was so difficult.
I suppose.
Yeah, I ended up not touching it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much to talk about. I just wanted to, you know, make a note of how cool it was that those options were available.
I was gonna also bring up with that. I think it's a really cool thing that they've done in that it's not like specific difficulties, but you sort of dictate how you want it to be more difficult yourself. However, it doesn't give you any indication if that's how the game works when you start it up, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
So I sort of went into the game and was expecting to be like, oh, go into like story mode or easy, normal, hard, whatever, and just got thrown in. I was like, oh, maybe it's like either one difficulty or it's just an adaptive difficulty, maybe. But no, if you go into the options menu and go into the gameplay section, you'll find a bunch of options right at the bottom.
Yeah, it feels like it could have really benefited from a screen at the start of the game with just like bundles of options. Even if it isn't necessarily like easy, normal, hard, even if it was like, you know, like story mode, balanced mode, challenge mode, or something like that, right? So like, don't word it in that kind of very binary, easy, middle, hard, easy, medium, hard. But
even if they didn't do that, just give you that options menu right at the beginning, and just be like, you can also change these during gameplay. Like that would have been enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I suppose, kind of, you know, naturally come off the back of that, the difficulty of the game I found very, very interesting. I have it written down as difficulty scale, and what I mean by that is, I either found I was absolutely annihilating people, or I was absolutely getting wrecked. For me, there never felt like any in between.
No, I didn't think that either.
Yeah, I don't know what other people's kind of takes on that were, but
I found it quite comfortable. It was like on the high end of what I would be comfortable with for the most part. In the like, I would have moments where it was like impossibly difficult, and I'd die like a good few times. I'm not the best at aiming, for example. But after I try them a few more times, I'd sort of get the rhythm of it, and I'd manage to solve it through, well, maybe adaptive difficulty, I don't know. But it felt like I was beating it through that. And like, I don't know. I felt like the enemies scaled pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did scale well. I think just that constant feeling of either destroying or being destroyed persisted, for me at least.
It did feel like, I don't know, it just kind of felt like everything dealt a lot of damage, but you also dealt a lot of damage, which I'm totally okay with.
Yeah. I guess I maybe would have liked situations where I actually took damage and it didn't feel like I was basically dead. Having a little bit of a... There were a few times it felt like that, but for the most part, not particularly.
Max, did you have any health mods on?
I did.
Which one did you have?
What's the level 5 health mods?
There was one that increases your max health, and then there's one that makes it so that each little health pickup gives you more health.
I had one of each of those. I think the max health one was level 5, the health pickup one was level 4, and then my third, but the third slot I had was a energy regen increase.
Yeah, I did the same thing with the health. But I remember, I think when I was watching you play it early on, I don't think you had any health mods on.
No, early on I didn't.
And you had a tiny health bar. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Because I was playing with the health mods on from the beginning, so I was like, I need that. But even then, I felt like from pretty much right up to the end of the game, it felt like the enemies could pretty easily take me down to like really low health. I was like, fuck, if I didn't have those health mods on, I would have died so many more times.
Yeah, you get kind of reliant on health mods. Like, they feel like a necessity to have on.
It's interesting to say that I felt reliant on energy regen mods and
that as well, yeah.
The throw energy reduction cost mods.
I had that one, and I had the energy reduction, and I had one of the health mods one. I think it was the pickup one, because I was okay with the amount of health I had after I'd upgraded it in the tree for a little bit.
I just realised we started talking about that without actually establishing what it was. You get modifiers that you can apply to your character and your guns. As you level up, you get more slots for it. Like at max, you can have up to 3 personal slots. Like they can give you faster energy regen or like more health or, all sorts of things. And then for the guns are the same. Like each different gun also has its own 3 slots and you can put mods on them. I liked that system. I thought it was kind of cool.
Yes. The mods, to kind of go off what Carl was saying, the mods were very cool. I definitely like the mod system. I wish I had a little bit more space.
Yes.
For mods.
Yeah. There should have been some sort of way to upgrade the amount of space you had.
Yeah. But no, I definitely did like. I liked how non-permanent it felt. Like I spent a lot of the games experimenting with different mods. And also what set of weapons I had, because you can have. There are like 5 weapons, I want to say. There's the
something like that.
There's the pistol. There's the sniper called Pierce. There's the spin, which is the machine gun. The shatter, which is a shotgun, and then there's one more you get right at the end, which is like a grenade launcher type thing that I never actually unlocked.
Nor did I.
And yeah, I loved being able to try out different combinations of weapons. I will say the pistol definitely suffered from very good at everything syndrome.
Yep. I always had the pistol equipped.
Yes, and then I had one other thing depending on what kind of the situation was. Like I never ran with like the spin and the sniper because I just didn't feel great. It was always the pistol and something else, especially if you put like I think I tried a load of different mods on the pistols, but I settled with like a 70% damage bonus, more accuracy and less reload time.
I think that's exactly what I had.
I pretty much ran that for most of the game.
I feel like, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I feel like you almost kind of have to do that with the pistol because all those other guns fulfill very specific purposes, whereas the gun is just kind of a generic weapon. The pistol is very generic, so like if you didn't make it great at everything, then you'd never use it. And then
True.
Yes, it's definitely a fine balancing act, I feel. Because like I said, if you make it crap, then you never use it, but on the other hand, if you make it too good, then you only use it. I definitely do agree. It did feel like the pistol was what I always used, and then the other weapons are more situational. Like a few times when the enemy were far away, where I would like quickly swap out to the sniper. But then if I knew I was closing in, I would pull out my fucking ridiculous triple rate of fire modded spin.
See, I think completely agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if there weren't all those extra guns, I would have been totally satisfied with just the pistol as well. Like it was really fun to play with.
Yeah, it was fun to play with. I definitely like the variety it gave you.
And especially with the mods as well, you could sort of completely change up how it felt to use it as well.
Yes. It's a common scenario when it comes to things like that of like, do you make a thing better at what's already good at, or do you try and shore up some of its weaknesses, if that makes sense? So for the spin, for example, do you put like triple rate of fire mods on it, or do you put an accuracy mod on it and a less ammo consumed per shot mod on it to try and like shore up some of the weaker areas, which I personally had a lot of fun playing around with.
Yeah. It's a very cool system.
There was an issue I had with the mod thing, though. I was talking to you about this, Max. Was that it gives you stuff in percentages, like increases your health by 15%, or increases rate of fire by 8%, or something like that. But the thing is, that doesn't mean a whole lot when you don't know what the numbers are, because you have like an energy bar, and you have a health bar, and the enemies all have a health bar above their heads, but there's no numbers. It's just a bar, and it goes down, and then they die. You don't know how much health an enemy has. It made it difficult to compare mods to each other and figure out what was more useful, because you didn't know what the actual numbers were. Like, I had a mod that was like, it increases the number of shots that I got in my pistol, right, by like a percentage, which was weird. And I was like, how does that work? So I took out my pistol and I shot the wall until I emptied my clip, and I counted it, and it was 14 shots. I was like, all right. And then I went into the menu, put the mod on, took it out again, shot the wall again, and that time it was 16. So like, okay, that increased my number of shots by 2. Why couldn't the game have just told me that? Why can't the mod just say, gives you 2 extra shots? Like, that would be a lot more... Then it'd be a lot easier for me to determine the actual use of that mod.
Or even just just having a bunch of numbers that it doesn't even say like gives you +2 shots, so that you see the numbers changing.
Like I was saying to Max, I think the reason they don't have numbers everywhere is because it's clearly going for a mainstream audience, and I think they were afraid that putting numbers everywhere would deter some people, so they wanted to just make it look as user friendly as possible. But it does kind of make me wish that there was a mode you could turn on in the settings that like gave you the actual numbers.
I actually want to agree with you and then disagree at the same time.
You can't do that, Max.
I absolutely can. Fucking watch me. I agree with you that it's not a great system, but I disagree with the part that it makes comparing mods more difficult. I think it makes comparing mods easier.
I'd agree with that.
I think because like if I look at I mean, it's obvious when you have like 2 shots and 4 shots, but if I look at something that's like 20% damage increase and then 40% damage increase, like 40 is quite like evidently more obviously better than 20%. But if I was to look at numbers, especially if you start to get into weird kind of numbers, like non-round numbers, non-even, like non-easily operatable numbers, it might get tricky to compare them. Whereas I can look at my cool, that's 12% rate of fire, that's 25% rate of fire. Awesome. I know that one's better than that one.
Okay. Yeah, when you're comparing 2 of the same mod, sure. Like, yes. 25%
when you're
is
trying
better
to,
than those.
When you're trying to see what effect that has in the game, that's where I agree with you. That's where I think it does make it more difficult. But also, I think, like, where do you draw the line with that? Do they need to provide target dummies? Like, if you're comparing a rate of fire and a damage mod, Like, are you telling me someone's going to sit there and work out, like, the rate of fire increase, like, times by the damage per shot to their DPS?
Yeah, I think that's the thing is, for me at least, if there were numbers, I probably would have liked the system a little less. It would have been technically better, but I think not having that information sort of, I don't know, it's sort of I can't say that word.
I can't either.
It basically, yeah, it
Makes
made it
more
more
confusing.
vague. Yeah, it made it more vague, and it just means that rather than comparing them, you're looking at the individual elements of the gameplay. So you're looking at your recoil, for example, and you're like, okay, I think my recoil could use some improvement, but at the same time, I think my health needs more improvement. So something like that, right? So rather than worrying about comparing the mods, you're comparing your gameplay experience. And I felt like that was more engaging than looking at numbers. Like, I 100% think it should be in the options menu, but I don't think it should be a part of the core gameplay, personally.
Also, I just want to point out, like, when it gives you mods as you go through the game, it just gives you random ones. You can have multiple of the same mods, and they're all of different powers. And then also, you can sell mods that you don't want for the currency that you use to upgrade your guns. I kind of wish there was just a button that was just like, sell all less powerful mods. Because all I did anytime I went in there was I would look at, I would categorize it by mod type and look at whichever one I had that was the highest, and then delete all the ones that were the same or lower than that. And that was just what I did every time, because it's like, I got this one is the highest, I don't need any of these. I kind of wish there was a button that just you press it and it did that for you.
Yeah, I definitely did the same thing. Although like, there were times where I wanted multiple of the same mod.
But then you would just have some, like, a favorite option, so that wouldn't get deleted either.
Yes, yeah, this is true. Yeah, that would have been useful. I think also, so here's a question, actually. Kind of going off the mod system, did you guys realize you could upgrade the level of the mods you can buy at the shop?
What do you mean?
So, you know, you could go into, I can't remember, when you went to a control point and you had all the options and you clicked into the one where you could customize your weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And there was also the mod section on there, and you clicked on there and you got a list of mods you could buy.
Oh god, you did, didn't you? I didn't use that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Did you know there was a button at the bottom of that screen to upgrade the quality of the mods it gave you?
Yes, I
Yeah,
did
that
know
was.
that.
I don't think I did that much.
I never used that because, and I assume I would have gotten more from secondary missions. I never found any more house memories.
I had a similar experience with the house memories, and I ended up re-exploring the executive area, and there were loads of house memories.
Interesting.
It seemed to be only around the hub that you find those.
Curious. I wanted to upgrade it because there were certain mods that I was like trying to get. Like I really wanted, another. I had a level 5, a level 4, and a level 2 rapid fire in my my spin, and I really wanted 3 level 5s, to be honest, because that would just be really funny. And I wanted to get that, but I was like, I can't. I want to upgrade, because in theory, if you upgraded it, then you could just keep buying mods over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find any house memories. I just kind of assumed that it was a side quest thing, but I also didn't really want to do side quests just for that.
Yeah.
Like I don't know I didn't realize until right at the end of the game. Bullets do more damage against health than they do shields, and kinetic abilities do more damage against shields than they do health.
Oh, I noticed that immediately.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't.
I did not.
I didn't notice it till I read a tooltip that told me.
That's actually kind of a problem I wanted to bring up about the game in general, was I feel like it's lacking in the tutorial area.
There were certain elements where that was true.
It doesn't tell you a whole lot. I remember there was one bit where I think I saw that same thing where in a tooltip that like melee attacks do more damage against shields or something. I was like, oh,
See,
I could have learned that not when it was the end of the game. Thanks.
I just found that I just experienced that while playing it, because I was just shooting
Same.
them and I was like, this enemy is really fucking powerful, and then I just threw something at them and just instantly like got rid. I was like, oh okay, I guess I
mean,
need to use.
That is
exactly
partly
what I
because
found as well.
throw is disgustingly OP.
True, but
That
it
is-
does
yeah.
like you do realize
Like,
I love
through
it.
that
Yeah, so I was like,
process.
throw is fantastic. It feels great to use, but it is also like the most OP ability
Yep.
in the entire fucking game.
And I love it for that.
So Carl mentioned the health mods earlier. There was also the ability upgrade system, which also let you put points into upgrading your health. So you could increase it by 10, 20, 30, 40, 50%, etc.
I did that as well.
See, for the first... I want to say for the first 8% of the game, I basically put all my points into throw. Because throw was just that good.
Yeah, I think I started with health and then throw.
Because, like, it's just... And what's great is, like, throw can take out multiple opponents at once, too.
Yeah.
So you just, like, pick up a bit of rock next to you and you just absolutely fucking yeet it at some unsuspecting hiss. That's the name of the enemies in the game. They're called hiss. And you just absolutely, like, you can RKO 3 hiss at once. And it's great. I love it. It's
So
great ability.
good. I love that you can deal damage when the rock or whatever it is coming to you,
Yes, you
and
can
then you can throw it.
release it whenever. Which is actually really good for getting enemies behind cover as well.
Yep.
Because you can pull a bit of rock off or behind them and then release it before it gets you, and if even if they're ducked behind cover, it will still like slam into them.
Well, you don't even have to release it. As long as it's zooming towards you, it can still deal damage.
Yeah, I mean you can
really
also
cool.
actually throw at them.
Well, yeah.
Um,
Just quickly, I want to bring up. Did anyone get really annoyed with the Bureau mission announcements, the timed missions?
I didn't do them. I did like one of them, and then I was like, yeah, fuck this.
Same.
Can't be asked.
So-
they would pop up at the most inopportune times as well.
Exactly.
that was weird.
Sometimes
It'd be like-
you'd be in the middle of a cutscene and you'd hear the mission announcement sound, and it's like, I'm trying to watch a cutscene here.
I love how it'd be like the middle of a really important story beat, and it'd be like, oh, that was it. We'll explain there in a second. I was in the quarry. You know where you're being chased by the 2 fucking collections of weird black mass? Those things.
Yeah.
I was like being chased by those, and the was like, Bureau alert! And I was like, not now. Busy.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well. It would happen during combat as well, and it would cover the screen.
Yes. So to explain, you got what essentially amounted to like randomly generated side missions that, as far as I'm aware, were basically go to this place and kill some things.
Yeah.
Like that's actually kind of ties quite well in with a reason why I didn't do a lot of the side quests. It's not gonna lie, I found a lot of the side quests, and I'm aware that I would have missed some good ones by having this attitude. But I found a lot of them were go here, kill a thing, press a button, collect the thing, come back. Which was kind of boring. It wasn't like when you have the fridge in the Panopticon.
Oh, the fridge is so good.
The fridge was so cool. Like it wasn't like a lot of the time when I did so much, I didn't get cool bits like that. I just got kind of boring bits where like, oh yeah, I'm fighting more hiss. Woo. And obviously they weren't particularly hard, so you just fucking threw rocks at them until they died. But yeah, the Bureau alerts were fucking annoying.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it wasn't just me that had the alerts, the sound popping out the middle of cutscenes.
Yeah. What
Yeah,
an awful idea.
I never had it during a cutscene. I did often have it while I was busy with stuff. But
But
I don't
mind the
remember it
prompt
being-
wouldn't come, it was just the sound.
Yeah, exactly. The title wouldn't show up in the cutscene.
Oh, okay.
Interesting choice. Like, I think it's a cool little idea to get more, like... I can't remember what you even get from it. I assume you get some mods and maybe some ability points or something.
Probably ability points, yes.
Yeah. So I think it's a cool way of doing that. But I didn't do any of it because the rest of the content was interesting enough that I didn't care about timed missions.
Yeah, very much what I found too.
You're always kind of doing something. You're always
Yeah.
going somewhere and doing something. So you're never at a point where it's like, oh, I gotta wait for something. Better just go around and do. And then
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
just so happens to go up like, oh, you got this thing to do. No, it was always like, I'm doing this thing. Please stop.
Yeah, pretty much. I do have a completely unrelated thing I wanted to talk about.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So, I understand this for controller, obviously. it's a controls thing. It really, really annoyed me that C's was bound to F. But also, switching your weapon was bound to F.
Oh, what?
But also, interacting with stuff was bound to F as well. Like, what were they thinking?
Yeah, F. Yeah.
I do remember moving a bunch of that stuff around. But yeah, I do remember F being a problematic key when I was trying to rebind stuff.
Now you mentioned it, yes, that was all bound to X on the controller. But I never
Which
really had
makes
an
sense
issue.
for a controller.
Yeah, I never really had an issue with it.
I think I mainly had an issue with it when I first got C's, and I was trying to activate it too early when the enemy hadn't taken enough damage. And then I'd switch my weapon because I tried to press C's, and then I was using a fucking machine gun when I was like halfway across the map.
Yep.
It's like, I don't know,
I get that frustration.
it's a small issue, but it shouldn't be a problem on a keyboard.
Yeah, you have a lot of spare keys, I would imagine.
Yeah. And like there was a couple of things like that as well. Like I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think another one was like levitation was on the jump button. And that was absolutely fine. But then sometimes you'd like vault over something and then you'd be holding space because you're expecting yourself to fly, but you don't because you vaulted.
That's very curious because the exact opposite happened in that if you held A on controller, you would vault and then you would levitate.
Oh, okay. Maybe it glitched or something then when I did it.
Or maybe it's just an input difference between the two
Or possibly, yeah.
platforms.
But either way, I think it's just it's got a lot of issues in that sense of like the binding could be a lot better for a keyboard.
Yeah.
But it makes sense because it was probably designed to work on a controller and then keyboard was thought about after.
Yeah, probably. Oh yeah, C's was like underrated ability of the game for me personally.
Oh yeah.
I completely dismissed C's for a long time, and then I realized that it basically acts like a fucking target dummy. All the enemies just like stop shooting you and they start shooting whoever you seized.
Yep. It's perfect distraction.
Yeah, I actually for a while ran with a C's mod. A C's time it was like 60% decrease, something like that.
Oh wow.
It was one of the good ones. I think it was absolute was the top difficulty or the top rarity of mods. Yeah, I ran with that for a while just because that was quite useful. Especially if you find yourself in a pickle.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh lordy, I need help.
I found a lot of the times in combat scenarios that I would be in a like massive fight. I'd kill loads and loads of enemies, but I couldn't get close enough to get health. And so I'd have to take down one enemy or like take them down to low health, seize them, and then I could sprint in, grab some of the health, and then sprint back out. It was a really cool way of doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Speaking of death, just a very, very small point.
Segue.
I really liked the fact that it's not necessarily a checkpoint system to the game. When you die, it's almost like it still saves stuff that you've done after you died, right? So, like, if you pick up a document or something while you're in the middle of a fight, you will keep that document.
Yeah, definitely.
After you die.
More like a respawn than anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And like, for example, as well, if you finish a combat scenario and then you get you go into a second combat scenario and you die in that second one, it respawns you at the beginning of the area, but you don't have to do that first scenario. Like, I thought it was a really, really nice way of doing it because you've already experienced that part of the game. You don't need to go through it again, even if it makes it a bit harder technically.
I mean, I didn't die that much, so I wouldn't be able to comment. But yeah, that's fair enough. Actually, yeah. Sorry, was there any additional points anyone wanted to make on what Keen just said?
Nope.
Nope.
If not, there's one thing I want to bring up before I think we should probably move on to the more thematic / story side of it. So the board countermeasures were a cool addition, but also kind of frustrating at the same time.
I never did one.
So these were, I want to call them almost like secondary objectives. So it was like, kill 10 Hiss with the Shatter, or kill 5 Hiss engineers in maintenance. And a lot of the time it was fine because you'd end up doubling back through areas, so it wasn't that much of an issue. But there were times where, say, if you couldn't really target them, like, because there wasn't really a way to guarantee enemies respawning. Like, I never quite figured out how enemies respawned. I knew they did, and I knew if you ran through areas, they would respawn at times. They had certain encounter areas where they would spawn in again. But I never quite figured out what caused that to happen.
No.
Or what the logic was behind it. Because there were times where I'd run through the same area multiple times and get absolutely nothing. And then another time where I'd literally go into a room, kill the enemies, go to the next room, come back, and they'd all spawn in again.
Yeah.
I just didn't. And it made doing some of these board countermeasures really, really difficult. And just, not difficult, more frustrating. It would have been nice if there was a little bit more consistency there. To know that if I needed to go and kill Hiss engineers in the maintenance sector, I knew where to go. Or I knew if I just went and, like, just ran through maintenance sector once or twice, I would stumble upon enough spawns that it would be convenient. I get the fact that the developer probably had to balance between giving enough enemies to people who are looking to do those challenges, but also not giving so many enemies that people that aren't looking to do the challenges just get fucking irritated because they go 2 steps and they get another spawn of Hiss. Because that would be annoying. There were times where I had that. Where I'd be running through an area and I'd be like, God damn it, really? Again? Okay, fine. I don't know if anyone else felt the same way.
After hearing you describe that, I'm glad I never activated any of the countermeasures. Because I feel like that could have got quite frustrating, whereas the experience I had was like, yeah, every now and then enemies would respawn in areas, and it's like, oh, cool, this is like a little dynamic way of keeping the game interesting. Yeah. And that was as far as that thought went.
Honestly, the way I approached it in the end was I would just activate the first 3 and then forget about them.
Right.
And if I did them, I did them. Or I'd go for the more generic ones, like kill 10 Hiss with spin.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
And if I had a bunch of specific ones, I wouldn't bother going out my way to do them because I knew it would just be frustrating. And I'm like, yeah, if I do it, I do it. If I don't, I'll just abandon it and get another one. Cool. No biggie.
Yeah, I was exactly the same with that.
I think for me, I saw they were basically like daily missions almost. Like it was that sort of mission. I was like, not interested. I didn't consider that they would like you'd complete them without thinking about it. But yeah, I mean, I didn't activate them and I wasn't needing more mods or anything, so it definitely feels like a little extra thing for the people that want it, which is cool.
Yeah, I enjoyed looking through it and kind of... I basically had, like, an internal measure of, like, how annoying is this going to be to do versus how good is the reward going to be from it. As well. Like, most times the area-specific ones, I wouldn't do it, although I did do it once when it was, like... that's where I got my, like, 70% damage mod for my pistol from. And I never found that anywhere else.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah,
clearly get some good stuff from it then.
Oh yeah, definitely. I just think the system needed to be maybe a little bit thought out, and maybe a few of these kill the specific enemy in specific sector ones probably could have just been doing with being removed.
Yeah,
I quite like the weapon ones actually. The weapon ones were kind of fun because it encouraged me to use weapons or play in a certain play style where I wouldn't normally do it.
Yeah,
which was very cool actually. I quite like that one a lot.
I can totally see the reason that you would like those and want to use that sort of mission. But the way that I was playing the game, I very much enjoyed just deciding what I wanted to do for once, whereas a lot of games have that by default, the sort of like daily challenges and things like that.
Yeah, that's fair.
And so it was almost like just a change of pace for me. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Is there any closing thoughts on any gameplay related things?
Nope. I think that's it.
Yeah, I think so too.
It was a lot of fun.
It was. I was gonna say overall. Yeah, I liked the. I liked the gameplay overall. It felt pretty fluid. It felt kind of fun. Definitely, obviously, wasn't the most in-depth combat or gameplay system ever, but it did the job quite well.
I thought it did a really good job of just keeping a fun gameplay loop.
Mm.
Like, it was exactly the same thing over and over.
Yes, throwing shit at Hiss never got boring.
Yeah, like there was a good variety of enemies, but even so, when it was just like the same things you'd seen quite a lot recently, it was always just as fun.
Yep.
I agree. I thought it was very fun. Like, again, even if it was the same thing, yeah, it was always satisfying.
Yes. Kyle,
Well,
given how I get the feeling you're very eager to get into the story side of this discussion.
Okay, well, should we start with the good or the bad? Because there's plenty of each.
I kind of want to go 1 for 1, to be honest. Can we go 1 for 1, starting with bad?
Starting with bad. Alright, let's see what's bad. My list.
Not like I really want to hear like a ream of paper unfolding then.
I thought there was a lot of dialogue in the game that was trying to be funny. Emphasis on trying. From various NPCs that you're talking to. Just kind of, not trying to be a comedy, but just, that kind of like, almost like Marvel-esque kind of like humor, just like thrown in there to like contrast what's going on. And I feel like it doesn't do a good job of it at any point. A lot of the humor just felt very generic, very awkward, and out of place for the theming that had already been set up. Don't know if anyone else caught that.
I would need to be given some examples, but I didn't feel like the less important NPCs, the unnamed NPCs, had kind of cheesy one-liners. Yeah. But
like the researchers in the hub area.
Yeah, the researchers in the hub area and some of the guards, but I never noticed. Was it mainly main characters? You're on about Kyle?
I'm talking about characters
like
you're actually
named
talking to.
Characters.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I didn't get that feeling. I thought the head of security guy was a little bit awkward.
Yeah, the security guy. Was he the guy who was running the Panopticon?
No, he was the guy you meet who's in the one of the first NPCs you meet. He's in maintenance you find him in the big circular room in the middle of maintenance.
Oh, him.
Yeah.
I liked him.
Actually, you know what? Now I'm thinking about it, you are correct.
Yeah, there you go.
Now I'm thinking about it, you are very right, actually. You are right, but it didn't bother me.
Right.
Like, you mean the way the guy makes a fucking 69 joke, and he's like,
Yeah.
And the guard's just like, yes, sir, it's sell 69.
I did actually kind of like him in the end. I thought I didn't at first, but by the end I came around on him.
I think for me, with that character, and I think any of the humor as well for me, it all came down to the fact that this is their day job for me. Where it's they're making light of the situation, because even though this is pretty terrifying, they're dealing with terrifying stuff all the time. So they're still human at the end of the day. They're not just faceless agents. I guess it depends on how you're going into this.
I mean,
how you're expecting it to the atmosphere it's expected to have.
I don't mind the idea of splicing humor in there to kind of break it up. Again, it's kind of like the same technique Marvel does, right? To kind of break up the atmosphere, but you can do it right and you can do it not right. I don't think this game did it right.
Maybe if you, like Max said, if you gave specific examples, I'd agree, but off the top of my head, I didn't have any problems with the dialogue.
Well, I mean, it's more a case of, for me, I agree that the dialogue was kind of cheesy, and there was some bad jokes in there, but yeah, it didn't bother me. I think it's probably the difference here.
All right, let's look for good.
Yeah, let's go for good ones.
Art direction was good.
What, sorry?
Yeah, the art direction was generally quite good.
Yeah.
The graphics were great.
Actually, this is a bit where I can flex and brag a little bit. I have a 3070.
Oh,
so I got to play with ray tracing on. That game is real cool in ray tracing. With ray tracing on.
I got it as well.
Only imagine.
Yes. Given
Like-
how much
Oh,
use
wow.
the game makes of lighting, both sinister and just to make things look pretty, that game with ray tracing on is really nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that actually leads me on to something I'd forgotten to mention.
Mhm.
I was playing on medium graphics, by the way, and
Okay.
it looked beautiful.
Yeah. I
So I can
I
only
had
imagine how it looked.
everything cranked up to max.
Mm.
Like, it's the first game I played in a while I've actually been able to, like, flex my GPU on at all.
Nice.
Like, fuck it, this shit's going up to 11.
But that actually was one thing that was quite impressive to me. Was my PC's pretty old. Like, I have a 1070, which is fine, but everything else is pretty old.
Hmm.
And I ran this game with no frame drops, and it wasn't maxing out my CPU, which is not a very good one. And I was mostly impressed with that because basically every object in this game is physics-based.
Mm.
Yes.
The optimization there must be crazy.
Mhm.
Like, it was just a very technically impressive aspect that I noticed.
Yeah, from a technical point of view, it's a very impressive game.
Hmm.
I mean, I had it on low most of the time because I started on high. I was like, "This is cool," and then I realized how hot my PC was, and that freaked me out. So I was like, "I'll turn that down a little bit." But even on low, it still looked great.
Yeah.
Wait, Carl, don't you have, like, a pretty good PC?
It's I don't know. I don't even really know how good it is. That's how little I know. I don't know if you ever moved a projector around.
Yes, that was really
yes.
cool.
That was cool because there's projectors in the world that are beaming messages from what was his name, Casper.
Casper Darling, yeah.
Casper, one of the professors at the FBC, and in most games that would just be a video that's on the wall.
Yes.
But what was cool about this game is that it was actually projecting it from the projector object to the point where you could use the telekinesis power to pick up the projector, and the image would move along the wall. It's actually being projected.
It probably wasn't being projected by the projector. It was probably on a rendering surface. It was following the direction the projector was pointing.
No, it was
therefore
actually projecting.
giving it the
because
illusion of being projected.
it was being projected because it would project along the floor and the wall if it was on the floor.
It would project onto Jessie. You could stand in front of it and it would
Yeah.
put her on her back.
You could bend the rendering surface around it. Oh. Yeah, no, I know. I'm just being
That was very
damn
impressive.
arsehole. It was very cool. Although it got annoying if you accidentally knocked it over while you were trying to watch it.
Yeah.
Which happened to me a few times. Like, shit. No, get back on
That's
the stand.
actually a very good point with the projectors as well, and
Mhm.
just the TVs and things like that. The loads of the little bits of cutscenes and things like that were live action.
That's actually probably a point, that we should mention, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was going to say,
Which-
actually,
When's the last time you've seen that in a game?
while I didn't read or listen to any of the logs, I pretty much always stopped when I saw one of the Casper videos.
Yes.
That was the cool. And
His performance was absolutely fantastic.
he was great.
Yes. Oh, he was brilliant, yeah.
Mhm.
I just found it very, very interesting that the game looks good enough that the live action doesn't look out of place by any means.
Yeah, well, I think all the live action had the kind of film grain effect, didn't it?
It did.
Which
yes.
definitely helped it, I think, blend in more. Like I said, yeah, because you were always watching in the world, even when you kind of had a cut when you were watching it, you could still see the outline of the TV. It felt less jarring.
Yeah. You see a lot of those videos as you're going through the research sector.
Yeah, a lot. Of them.
And I remember walking into Casper's lab and being like, "Oh my god, this is actually where this was filmed."
Yes,
that
was cool.
It's really cool because it's like a digital recreation of a live set that they had. I don't know. It's really interesting.
Yeah, no, it is very cool. The all the live action bits really good, and seeing the progression of Darling as he kind of starts to slowly go fucking crazy. Honestly, spoiler alert. I mean, but then again, if you've got an hour 40 into this, spoiler alert anyway. I legit thought he was gonna shoot himself in the final cutscene you see of him. I was fairly certain he was gonna shoot himself or something like that.
I was convinced that you would have to you'd have to fight him in the end, basically. Like, he would have transformed into some horrible,
Yes,
other dimension monster, and you.
That is something I considered too. Especially when it talks about like feeling the Hedron resonance changing him.
Yes.
You're like, oh no, sir, this is a. It's like coughing in 2020 with COVID around.
Is that the last we hear of his story? Was that video?
As far as I'm aware, I mean, honestly, knowing how
sorry, go on.
knowing how like many hidden places around the game, there could be more.
I wonder if it isn't in the game already, if that's where some of the DLC heads.
Very possibly. So yeah, the art direction was very good, and it is a very pretty game.
Yes.
It's kind of another bad point. It's kind of similar to my previous point, but like, I feel like with the NPCs, a lot of the time when they're talking to you, it feels like the way they're acting doesn't match the atmosphere. And you brought up the point before, Keenan, of like, oh, they work here and they do this every day. They see weird shit every day. But even still, it's not even that clean cut, because the premise when you get there is that the building has been taken over by the Hiss. Like, normally it's a research facility that's like kind of dangerous, but they've got it mostly under control. Mostly. This is it's specifically set up as this is like a code red situation.
Oh yeah, it is, sure. But then they have also had pretty like big things happen before, like it not as big, obviously, but the one that I'm thinking of immediately is you can read about basically how the building shifted and a shark ended up falling into a different office. Things like that. Like, weird stuff happens because of the artifacts getting out of hand. And, like, that entire side quest with the anchor and, like, the TV as well. It's just stuff happens because every single, say, altered item and object of power is unprecedented until they figure it out. So I think to a degree you can get away with it.
I'm also going to offer maybe another slight explanation, in that I feel like that sense of panic is more to get across how Jessie is reacting to the entire thing. Because obviously she's not as familiar, right? With the Bureau and all the weirdness that goes on. So I feel like that sense of impending danger is more from her, like trying to be more from her perspective. It's like, oh shit, what the fuck is all of this? And the NPCs are almost supposed to be inherently jarring to the complete fuckiness of the situation in order to kind of make it feel a little bit odd almost. I don't know, maybe I'm reaching a lot by saying that.
I mean, that's the sort of impression I got from it.
That's probably what they were going for. I don't know. That's why I never... Another good... Oh, here's what I've been waiting to talk about. Not really much to talk about, but we have to acknowledge it. The single best moment in the whole game.
Oh, okay.
You know what it is, Max?
Yes.
Maybe.
Oh, come on.
Is it? I'm scared. I'm thinking of the wrong thing now.
Probably just.
Is it the maze with the music?
The ashtray maze
good.
was that was fucking awesome. I loved that.
Yes, that sequence.
The sequence near the end
So
where you finally get into the ashtray maze and it's just playing this badass rock song as you're just running through, mowing down enemies, and that's the best thing.
And also, like, the maze is doing some real weird shit as well. Like, you go through a door and you end up on, like, the side of a wall with, like, the ceiling to your left and the roof to your right. And
all the walls and floors are constantly shifting around you.
Yeah.
It's real weird, but real disorientating too. I actually want to take the opportunity, while we're talking about the cassette player. So,
were we talking about the cassette player?
Well, that's...
Well, you need it to get through the
ashtray maze, and that's what's playing the rock music. So, and I'm sure we'll talk about the audio logs specifically later, but there are audio logs in the game. My biggest fucking gripe with audio logs is when I have to stand still and listen to them. You know, Bioshock does it quite well in that you have a little handheld... I can't remember what the name of it is. a handheld device, you can listen to it. Doom does it quite well, and you just download the data into your suit. And why I wanted to mention this specifically is because I remember having a discussion with Keenan literally the day before I finished the game, being like, oh, it would have been really cool if like they gave you a cassette play and it was like an object of power. And it would like, you could like, it would just be a cool little feature. And plus, like, the game does kind of have like an 80s vibe going on about it. Not massively, but definitely a little bit.
Well, they're not allowed to bring in modern technology, as you find out in one of the documents, because modern technology is more likely to become an old time.
So it feels very 80s in style. So I think Jesse rolling around with like, especially with like the leather jacket, right, and like their headset hanging around her neck, would be really, really cool. And I said this to Keenan, and then literally the next morning I'm playing the game and Artie fucking gives you the cassette player right then. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you literally had that in the game, and you could have fucking given it to us. And then instead of like, the audio logs being these big fucking chunky things, they could have just been a cassette.
The best part is they could have literally kept the entire story the same, and Artie just gives you the tape player at the beginning and a tape at the end.
That's what I mean. It would fit so seamlessly into the entire fucking thing. I don't know why they did it, and it's really annoying because it's like, I would have, because not like there were audio logs that I wanted to listen to, but didn't because I couldn't be asked to stand around. Because the audio logs were kind of long, I want to say.
Actually, I did stay around for them all, but that's only because I didn't find very many.
Okay.
I don't know how many there were in the game, but it seemed like, compared to most games that have audio logs, there weren't very many at all.
But they were quite long, right?
They were fairly long. Like, I remember sitting by the furnace for a while, listening to this woman talk about how the furnace was an SCP or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was very tempted to just stand there and see if the devs implemented anything after like 10 minutes or something. Yeah, like, there are plenty of games that let you do it as well. It's not like it's just BioShock that's done it. It's like, it is a thing that is done, and yet devs still choose not to. I don't get it.
I don't understand either. I think it would have been really like, given how they literally had the mechanic for doing that in the fucking game. Like, they wouldn't even have to have changed anything. Like, the only thing they would have had to do is literally play the animation where Jesse like fucking puts on the headphones when you hit play. That's it. That's all they would have had to do.
It's literally
and then they would have had the system to play, and they could have just played it, and they could have just made the audio source follow her around. Oh, it was it really fucking. And I was kind of annoyed by the fact that, like you said, Carl, like, developers still haven't figured this out. And then I was doubling when I found out you literally get fucking given a cassette player.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Sorry.
I suppose the only argument towards it is that it makes you focus on the audio.
Yeah,
but then
I don't. My brain wanders
do it in
off
the first place. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happens to me.
Anyway, done with that. Would you
I have another point?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a very problematic point I'm about to bring up, because it's basically me just saying this game should have been a different game.
Okay.
But we'll go with it. I feel like also generally the gameplay and the atmosphere don't match.
Are you talking about ludonarrative dissonance, Kyle?
Oh my god!
Oh shit!
A little bit.
Okay, I have a question.
It's that.
Is there any game that doesn't have some form of ludonarrative dissonance? Any game that isn't a straight-up action superhero game that doesn't have ludonarrative dissonance to some degree? Because this is what I thought about a lot. And yeah, like games like Halo, right? Obviously, that works fine because you're a super soldier going around punching aliens in the face. That works. That's fairly easy to match up. I feel like anything that's more nuanced than that is going to have some of that. Like, just inevitably. I don't think there's a way where you can make modern combat gameplay match up with things that aren't this superhero shooter style. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, yeah, in the sense that a lot of games are combat focused, because and a lot of games don't have to be, but a lot of the time, games are about usually overcoming some sort of challenge, and for a lot of the time, the easiest way to portray that in a game is just
here's an enemy, kill them.
Right? So a lot of
move on.
Yeah, a lot of games end up being that, even if thematically they're trying to be something that is very different to that.
You could argue that this game could go in the direction of something like Resident Evil.
That's exactly what the point I was going to bring up. It feels like the thematically it was setting itself up to be almost like a survival horror, like Resident Evil, but it's a shoot 'em up.
I will say though, if it was, I would not have enjoyed the game anywhere near as much as I did.
Again, this is the thing I'm saying. Where it's basically impossible to hypothesize, or to theorize, if it would have been any better, because at that point we're literally talking about a different game.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just still, I feel like it's an interesting point that this is a problem that would have to have been decided upon before they ever started making anything. Programming anything was what they wanted this game to be. But it's just weird how there's all these, again, it's this SCP vibe, and they're talking about these monsters that come through from the other plane of existence. And so it makes me think I want to see more of that, right? I want to see more of these monsters, and I want to see you yourself have these paranormal powers, and it'd be cool if the gameplay was focused more on that, and you were using your powers to take down these super creepy and scary supernatural entities. It's that would make it feel so much more unique and make it fit in with the theming so much more. But instead, 90% of the gameplay is shooting guys with guns, every other fucking game. I should point out as well, for the audience, all two of you, that I'm literally we've been talking about how you fight an enemy called the Hiss in the game, which sounds all paranormal and shit, but really it's just a bunch of soldiers who worked at the FBC that have now been taken over, and now they're shooting you. And they look like normal people, except they're kind of darker and they have glowy eyes, and that's it.
Yeah.
Other than that, they're just guys with guns.
Yeah,
the main ones are. You also
the main
get
ones.
There's
a few cool monstery ones.
Yeah,
but most of it is guys with guns.
Oh my god, the invisible one that spooks you.
That's the best one.
Yeah,
that
was
really
super cool.
Yeah. And I was again, that's the kind of thing where if more of the game had been that kind of stuff, it would have matched so much more, I think, with the atmosphere. But
it's kind of I think
kind of stuff was sparing.
I think where the gameplay and the atmosphere matched up in maybe one of the best cases was the fungus stuff at the under the bottom of the maintenance sector.
Yes.
Or not maintenance, was it research? I think it was research. That's where, for me, the gameplay... Because I do kind of agree with you, although I see it as less of an issue. I think it's just a personal taste thing. But yeah, I think that's where they matched up the best, because, you were kind of creeping through these fucking weird corridors waiting for, these clicker-like motherfuckers to jump out at you. And in the end, you basically fight a massive fucking three-headed worm.
Oh.
Which was
looking forward to doing that.
Which was really annoying. It was very hard.
It was quite difficult, actually, yes.
I wasn't expecting there to be a boss at the end of that.
But yeah, and that was really cool, and I think that's, like you said, that kind of paranormal stuff is where the game really does shine.
It's interesting to me, how, just for me personally, that kind of thing so drastically affects my, how I enjoy a game. To the point where, the gameplay can be exactly the same in two different parts of the game, but because the theming is a little different, I'm suddenly enjoying. I mean, that was my whole thing with Dishonored. How I fucking hated Dishonored for the first two-thirds of it. It's this fucking sucks. But then, like, the last third, when the story changed after the twist happened, and then I was like, oh, this is fun now. But the gameplay was exactly the same. It was just, it made more sense in my mind. And suddenly I was enjoying it. And it's weird. I get that that's very a me thing.
Yeah. I think the thing is, for me, it would bother me if it was a lot of a bigger thing, but I feel like the dissonance wasn't overly strong in my opinion. Just because you did have the aspects like, you're not just someone who's come into this place and has objects of power and stuff. They make it very clear that the director is like this also very paranormal sort of powerful thing, like the concept of being the director. And so I think for me, it didn't really even come up as a problem, because I was just like, well, yeah, the director's the only one that can do this. So, like, if I was a random person, I'd be dead instantly. But like, it would be a survival horror if I wasn't, for example.
Well, embarrassingly, I've run out of good points, so let's go into another bad point. That was only 2 good points.
Wait, how many bad points have you got left?
Like 3 more, but one of them's a short one.
Still something I want to talk about too. So.
Yeah, I still want to talk about the ending, but other than that.
Oh, that's true, actually.
Jessie, the girl that you play as, I think, don't know if anyone else got this, talks way too much. And like it was the kind of thing where like any time where there's like a moment that feels like it should be a bit quiet and is building atmosphere, she starts fucking talking, because she's constantly as she's talking to NPCs, she'll go back and forth from actually talking and then going into a monologue in her head.
Yes, I want to bring that up, yeah.
And so, like, even when there's a moment that feels like it should be a quiet and, like, contemplative moment to build atmosphere, she goes into her head and starts fucking narrating her own story. And it's like, fucking shut up for one goddamn second.
It almost feels like the developers didn't trust the player to think the right thing that Jess was thinking. Yes. So they were like...
To me, it came... So, for most of the game, you can argue that she's talking to Polaris. Because she is. But in those cutscenes when she's in her head and she's narrating her own decisions, it really feels like there was gonna be some sort of like Mass Effect player decision system there, and last minute they took it out because it made the game worse.
Another thing I want to Dylan.
Dylan!
God, you're pushing pencils again, Dylan. But so the whole setup is you're here to find your brother who got taken away by the FPC when you were kids. And he's here. You finally tracked him down. And so that's her whole motivation, right? And so as a player, that kind of becomes your motivation. If you care about a story like that. But Dylan is an asshole. When you finally meet him, he's just kind of a dick. Like, and I get it, right? He's been overtaken by the hits.
He's possessed. Cut the man some slack.
Yeah, sure. But you never get any glimpse of, I don't know. I feel like maybe if there had been moments where he snapped out of it and you got to see the real Dylan behind it, or maybe like flashbacks to when they were kids and you saw what he used to be like, or something to ground him and make it clear, like, you know, does something give you to hold
audio
on?
logs.
I was going to say there was at least one audio log which went into that sort of stuff.
Well, that wasn't part of the main story. So
that's a fair comment.
Yeah.
I would say the same thing. Like, you shouldn't have to rely on external media to make this main story make sense. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry, carry on. I interrupted you.
Yeah, that was basically it. It's just kind of feels like it ruins the motivation of it when you finally find him and he's just like, oh, you're a dick. I don't care about you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, in fairness, that one audio log that I found, you know when you go into the room Dylan was being kept in, and it turns out that he'd escaped. If you go into that room and explore it, there's an audio log in there. But the game tells you to turn around immediately. And you never go back.
Oh, I did actually listen to that one.
Oh, you did? Yeah. I think that one sort of like, it's after he's disillusioned, but you can still tell that he's Like you can tell it's because the
Bureau.
The Bureau. Sorry, I'm thinking SCP again.
Yeah.
Understandable.
Because the Bureau has been on his back for so long at that point.
I mean, I would have been fine if they them introducing him like that as well. If by the end, like, they got the hiss out of him and then you see him, you know, come back to what he used to be. You know, if there was some sort of resolution there.
Agreed.
Which brings us to my final point.
Is this going to be what I think it is? I hope it is.
Yeah. I mean, I just found it how ironic that they fake you out with a really disappointing ending to the point where they play the credits and everything, only to then be like, psych, and bring you back in, only to then give you an equally disappointing ending.
I would argue a more disappointing ending. Because I actually kind of liked the first ending, even though it was a fake out, because it was like, it was so jarring and sudden, and it was like, oh, they went there, I guess. Like, that's the end.
I remember sitting there at my PC and being like, oh, is that it?
Yeah, it's just weird that it's basically it's just a cutscene. It's the same thing that, again, Dishonored. Don't know why I'm bringing up Dishonored so much, but same thing Dishonored had. It was just a cutscene that kind of generally wrapped things up, and it's like, I feel like there should be more.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
And if we don't want to go over this now, we can go over it later. That's fine. Can someone explain the ending to me? Like, I think I get it, but I'm not entirely sure.
I mean, I'm going to be honest, I barely remember it at this point.
Okay, so
like,
Hedron is dead,
mm-hmm.
and because of that, the Hiss finds out that he's dead and tries to take you over. And so that's when you go into your head after the credits, and you're going through the office, and you eventually break out of the Hiss because you're strong enough to do that somehow.
Yeah, good all that.
And then you go and save Dylan by being teleported to the area that you couldn't go to earlier that would have been really cool to go to. And then...
Who or what the fuck is Polaris?
It was like a manifestation that Hedron put in you. It's something like that, anyway. I can't remember now.
Did at least buy us a drink first? Putting things in us?
It was basically an extension of Hedron, wasn't it?
Yeah, basically.
And is that... Because, so, as someone that's really not a story person, as in, I'm not bothered about the story, but also I just struggle to kind of understand it at times, as this probably shows. The thing that she kept referring to as you, which I thought was a really cool aspect, by the way, really intrigued me. That was one of the bits I probably found the most intriguing about the entire story. It's like, who the fuck is she referring to as you? Like, because that was what she would currently say, like, oh, did you bring me here? When she had those, inner monologue moments during dialogue with other NPCs. And I found that really curious.
Yeah.
And then, like, a bajillion things happen at once, and I was like, wait, what? Did we ever find out who the you was?
Oh, you found that out, like, a quarter way through, I thought. Maybe you just missed it.
Maybe.
I don't think it references it ever again.
Oh, excellent. No, I had no idea until right at the end.
Ah, right. Yeah, no, because they talk about, when they're going over... Did you talk to the woman in the boardroom at all? Like, after you had to?
A little bit, not a whole lot.
Okay, because I listened to everything she had to say, so maybe it was through that.
Maybe.
But they basically talk about Polaris and how it only stuck around after they went into the dimension through the slide projector and that sort of stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, Polaris and Hedron, for a majority of the time that you understand what Hedron is, are assumed to be the same thing, but then the twist is that they're not the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ending confused the fuck. I mean, it might have been because I finished the game at like 5 a.m. after about 3 hours sleep. That could have been a part of it.
Maybe.
But also, yeah, it just confused the fuck out of me. Sorry, I completely hijacked the point that Carl was going to make. I don't know if you ever made other than it fakes you out with a disappointing ending to give you a more disappointing ending.
No, that was it. It was just boring.
Okay.
I think for me, it pissed me off more, just because, like I said, it teleports you to this area that you see at the very beginning of the game, and it would have been like a cool little backtrack thing to do yourself. But no, you go I thought it was still part of the flashback, if I'm honest, or the in your head thing, because it doesn't make it clear you're out of your head. And so maybe there's something to that, but
Control.
so you go through this sort of platforming section, and you one-shot all the enemies, which is really cool. And then you get to your brother, and you try and cleanse the hiss out of him, and then it just cuts.
Beat the devil out of it.
And she's like, "Now I'm the director. We got the hiss out of him. He's in a coma." And then it ends.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
there is doing a cutscene, and then there is doing that.
Yeah.
It
I
was
mean,
so...
It's just weird how, like, why would you not devote more time to the ending?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, people, take the piss out of, like, Lord of the Rings, of, like, Return of the King, and how it has, like, 17 endings that just go on forever. But it's like, it kind of needs it. It's like a 10-hour experience by the end of it, and like it has a lot of characters, a lot of stories that it's got to wrap up. So it's going to dedicate a lot of time to doing that. And like this game probably takes a similar amount of time, like 10 plus hours, right?
Yeah.
It's got a lot of stuff going on. It should kind of give you more resolution, make it a bit more satisfying, but for some reason they felt rushed to just be like, all right, as soon as the gameplay's over, we got to run the credits within like a minute. So just just do it, just get it done, get them out of there as soon as possible. I don't know why. Like,
definitely felt like they didn't really know how to wrap it up. I was like, sure.
Yeah, it was weird because like as soon as the fake out, like when the ending happened, I was like, this is intriguing. It's not a satisfying ending, but it's intriguing.
Yeah.
And then the fake out happens, and I was like, oh yes, I love a fake out ending. What are we gonna get? This is gonna be good. And then it's just worse than the original ending.
I think, the fake out raises the bar of like, oh, this is gonna be good. And then you have those high expectations, it just never meets you. It's like, oh, okay.
I think they could have even gotten away with it, I think. If
For one for those meddling kids?
The meddling kids, but also if they'd put a fun boss at the end.
Yeah, just go ridiculous.
Like, because if you had like a crazy boss, like the fridge, for example, like have some weird crazy boss like that, like fight a manifestation of the hiss or something, and then cut to that jarring cutscene, it would be infinitely better than what we got.
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't even have a boss at the end. I forgot about that. It's
it
literally
just
you run through a series of not that hard combat scenarios.
Well, you literally one-shot everything. Yep. Like, you're meant to be super powerful. The board is like...
It's supposed to be like a power trip, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like they were trying to go for the Bioshock Infinite ending. Where the question one, you're just like, what the fuck did just happen? Like, and you're left with just a shit ton of stuff to process.
Yeah.
But
except
it kind of
the Bioshock Infinite ending lasts like 40 minutes.
This is true.
And a lot of it's playable.
Yes. But I feel like that's the kind of ending they were trying to go for. They just didn't really do it that well.
I almost wouldn't be surprised if they had a longer ending after that point, and it was the kind of thing there wasn't any actual gameplay in it. It was, so like then producers came along and were like, cut this down.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, overall I love the game, but that is one of the aspects that really upset me.
The game's, at least in my opinion, is far stronger thematically than it is in terms of storytelling.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the game is far, far stronger just thematically for seeing all the cool bits and pieces there are around it than telling a coherent, respectable, well-put-together story.
Yeah. Yep. Like, the story does its job. It's fine. Until the end.
I'll say that's the thing, it's not even like it was a great story with a bad ending, it was a fine story with a crap ending.
Yes.
But the world-building and thematic elements of it was great.
I do have one more thing to mention about the ending.
Go on.
So, I beat the game, I got that really shit cutscene, the credits played.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I neglected to mention was that I was enjoying this game so much that when I booted up Epic, I saw there was a sale on, and the DLC was on sale. I was like, okay, I'll buy this DLC. It's like £6 or something for the season pass.
Mm-hmm.
And so you finish the credits, and then it goes back into gameplay.
Yep.
And you're the director, and you're wearing director's clothes, and you get a mission called the Foundation. And I was like, oh, so the game hasn't ended yet. So there's going to be more story to this. They're going to actually finish this off. No, that's the start of the DLC.
Wait, is this not the DLC?
If you've got the Foundation mission, yes.
That happened. Oh, the Foundation mission. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can keep playing the game after the game's ended without the DLC.
Yeah. But
okay. Yeah, I saw you.
Like, if it had just thrown me in and it was all exactly the same as before, I'd be like, oh, okay, that's still disappointing. But I sort of got faked out by the DLC being like, there's another mission. Oh my god, is this like an epilogue mission?
They fucking broken steeled it. That was when the ending to Fallout 3 was so shitty, and there was so much fan outcry that Bethesda's like, fine, we'll release some DLC that will fix it. That was funny.
Yeah. So just added that.
Okay. There is one thing I want to mention. I don't know who wrote it, but whoever put the script together for the Threshold kids, I hope they seek like the legitimate help and counseling that they need. That shit's fucked up. It's great. I love it. Like, it was one of my most favorite parts of like all the additional like audio logs and extra bits you could read. I loved watching. I loved and hated every time I fucking came across that goddamn TV with that goddamn, I can't even remember what her fucking name was. I was like, oh yes, oh no. At the same time.
Really upset though. I only found one of those.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And so I'm going to go through and find them.
You didn't
again.
find the one with Dr. Uncle Bones?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
I look forward to it and also fear it.
Yes. Like, it's actually so great. I loved it. I want to go and honestly, I don't know. I might go back and replay the game. I might not. If I have free time, I might. But I don't know. Deathloop's coming out soon. You know, the Threshold kids. I did love watching it. It was creepy as shit. But I loved it, and I'm probably going to go and just look up them on YouTube or something because I just want to watch them all.
When I go and play the DLC, I'm definitely going to be looking around for those. I'm going to go back to areas where they might be.
I know the Mr. Uncle Bones one is in the mushroom pit.
Oh, okay. I never went down there, so that'll be why.
Yeah, that'll be why you didn't find it. But yeah, no, I did love those. I suppose that kind of that's the last thing I wanted to say.
So after I beat the game, I did do a bit of like the post-game stuff. There's one mission where, do you remember at the very beginning of the game when you see the first floaty guy? And then you get him down to 0, but then he just floats away.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And then Jesse's like, I have a feeling we haven't seen the last of him.
Oh, yeah.
But then you never see him again for the rest of the game. He shows up in the post-game.
Oh.
There's a mission where you go, they found him again, you gotta go kill him. And it's a really hard fight. It's like so fucking... It was one of the hardest things I had to do in the whole game.
Oh, wow.
But it was really cool because by that point, I'd like... fucking scrounged the entire game for ability points and just like leveled up to shit. So I had full levitation and I was just like, it ended up being this really cool battle where like he's floating around and I'm with my levitation, I'm floating around with him. It felt like there's I was fucking Doctor Strange just like floating and throwing shit at him. And it made me think like, wow, this again, I wish the game focused on this. It almost makes me want these developers to make like a superhero game with the same kind of combat system, but focus more on the abilities rather than the shooting. And in any case, like overall, because I guess we're about to move into our final thoughts anyway.
Yeah, basically, if you want to just like roll into that, then
this game, I think is so close for me to being something that I would have absolutely loved, just loved to pieces. But with just, there's a few critical design decisions, I think, with this one that bring it down. Like, it's obviously, it's a good game, right? I would say it's a solid 7 out of 10 for me, right? But I feel like with just with a few changes, it could have gone to a 9 or 10. Like, that, and it's really disappointing for me that, like, such small, subtle things brought it down for me. It was clearly very well made, and there was clearly a lot of passion behind it, and it makes me excited to see what more comes from its developer, because I think then there is a Control 2 coming.
I believe there is, yeah.
I will have my eye on that, because I would like to see them improve on this system. So, yeah. It's a solid game. I think it's maybe was a little bit overrated, because this game was getting like 9s and 10s when it came out. It was like reviewers were praising the shit out of it, and I think it's good, but yeah, maybe a little bit overrated. That's it, basically.
I think that's a fair assessment. Nico.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this game, and I agree with Carl's points. Like, it is very solid. I didn't have too many problems with it, honestly, but then I'm not the kind of guy to get very, I don't know what the right word would be, insightful? Judgmental? I don't know. Pedantic, maybe? Who knows?
I'm joking, Kyle.
Yeah, I like, on a surface level and, like, going a little bit into it, like, yeah, no, it's a really solid game. It's not, like, the best game I've ever played. Certainly could be improved in areas, but yeah, no, I would even go as far to say 8 out of 10. On, like, an actual scale, not IGN scale, where 7 is, like, and then anything below that is absolute trash. But no, thought it was very enjoyable. And Atty is the best character, well, one of the best characters in any game ever.
Accurate.
Yep. Very true. Keenan.
Hi. What's up?
What do you think?
Okay. So I don't know how much of it got across between my ranting about certain things in this, but honestly, I adore this game a lot. I can accept it's not a perfect game by any means. It has big issues in certain places, but it could also be because I haven't played this sort of game in a long time that I enjoyed it as much as I did. But I would honestly put it in my top 10. Like, I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Okay. I guess that just leaves me.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm mostly impressed by the game for actually making me want to read side text. And like actually explore to find more of it. Normally I don't give a fuck. Normally I just don't care. Normally. I'm really not bothered by that. I barely fucking read quest logs if I can get away with it. Can I read the quest objective? Cool. Hey, I'll just go do that then. So I think the fact that it made me want to do that's quite impressive. I think the gameplay is really decent and quite fun. And yeah, I mean, I think overall it's pretty good. I definitely has a soft spot for me as well because I do love SCPs. And I think given how blatantly the influence is from SCPs, that's kind of doubly helpful.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that was a core part of it for me as well, was the whole theming and stuff.
Yeah, it almost felt like a world I was already kind of familiar with. Yeah, I mean, if we're giving ratings, yeah, I'd probably give it, an 8 out of 10, I think. I kind of think that, yeah, there are definitely some key design decisions that if they bother you, would bother you a lot, but they don't bother me. So.
Yeah.
there we have it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That was 4 random people talking about Control.
Yep.
I don't know when you'll see this. I might just say a date just to piss Keenan off. Anyway, until the next time we come to grace your ears with our bumbling voices and thoughts on things that don't really matter.
You didn't have to phrase it like that. Now it feels weird.
Can I go poop now? I really need to poop.